domestic violence, and there's a sort of thesis behind it, and I'm putting it in a bit of a nutshell here, so feel free to rephrase it, that men are, in the end, if men are pushed too far by a too aggressive a feminism, there will be a backlash, and that there is, there's a sort of undercurrent of violence, be it verbal.
Oh, that's a warning, that's a warning,
but it's
not
a
commentary
warning
on the
that
utility
kind of
that.
suggests that there may be sort of fault in those who push progressivism too far. They will get a backlash. Some people, of course, see that as a bit of a permissive environment for bad behaviour.
Well, people tend to confuse describing the likelihood of something with supporting the fact.
Is Jordan Peterson just drawing a square in the papers? He's literally just going like this while talking.
It exists. I'm describing the likelihood of something, not.
This boy, he seemed like a guy they always asking these questions, answering these questions.
Right. That's how things work. And this is just a derivation of that, as far as I'm concerned.
How does that work in the context of domestic violence?
Oh, I don't think it's applicable in the context of domestic violence at all. I think those things are completely separate issues.
I mean, you were mentioning to me just as we were chatting.
And I was speaking only politically with regards to the backlash. That was a comment on political backlash. It had nothing to do with domestic violence. That's a whole different issue.
She's not listening. She's not listening. She's just ready to attack. She's not listening. Zero. No conversation. She's ready to attack.
But violence often pops up in your work as something you think drives things. That I think you've said in relations between men are regulated by a background threat of force. And in a sense, that's why men have difficulty with women. Is it really so?
No, that's why men have difficulty with women who are completely out of control. But
who should control women?
Well, other women themselves, men, society, just like everyone is controlled. I mean, you're controlled by society, I'm controlled by society, and thank God for that. I mean,
funny. I mean, you described yourself as a liberal earlier, and I think a liberal doesn't think that a society controls women or men.
Well, let's say regulates. I'm a psychologist as well.
But what is an out-of-control woman? What is this creature? How do we know when we met one?
Well, I'm sure that you've met women in your life that acted towards you in a bullying and detestable manner. It's very difficult for women to cope with that because they don't have any real recourse. And female bullying can be unbelievably vicious. And usually it takes the shape of reputation destruction, innuendo, and gossip. It's well documented. It's very difficult to defend. No, men do it too, but men... No, but the patterns...
Disproportionately women, in your view, or not?
Sorry. Yes, disproportionately women. That's what the data indicate. I mean,
where is the data on innuendo and gossip?
Well, it's among antisocial behavior among adolescents. It's a well-documented field. So, because people look at aggressive and antisocial behavior in women and in men. And in women, it tends to take the expression of innuendo, gossip, and reputation destruction. And in men, it tends to take the form of outright physical aggression. There's a whole literature on that. It's not a surprise.
She's not ready to listen to anything that Jordan Peterson wants to say. She's just looking at him like ready to attack. He's not ready. You have all the lines that you need to ask him to see if she can catch him. Let's see what happens at the end.
To anyone. This has been known for 30 years. I mean, the rates of antisocial...
I think the idea of the female gossip probably predates 30 years.
Well, it does.
By a long time, but that doesn't make it gospel.
But
really,
people it doesn't. But people have looked at how women express. Look, women have to express aggression somehow, unless you're willing to say that they're not aggressive. They tend not to do it physically.
There you go. You got tired of the
book channels. And what other channels are there other than physical aggression if you're going to be aggressive? Well, you go after people verbally. You go after them with innuendo and gossip and reputation destruction. And that's how it worked.
So males do express aggressiveness by physical expression, and females tend to do it in a more psychological realm. That means that because they cannot do it physically, right? I'm not saying they're not capable of. They are capable of doing it physically, but because they're not strong, they have to just rely on all the tools, and that's more psychological. That's what he's trying to say. Like the gossip area, it's not that men cannot gossip. Men do gossip, but disproportional, females tend to do so more often, right? Just to make sure they can put down whoever is that next figure, whether it's a male or female. That's what he's trying to say. But I don't think she wanna accept that as the base of the argument. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comment below.
And just to be clear, that you think that's predominantly a female modus operandi?
Okay.
It isn't that I think that.
Well,
It's that the clinical literature indicates that. It isn't that I think it.
I'm not interviewing the clinical literature. I'm interviewing you. What do you think?
Well, I'm a psychologist and a scientist,
You
and I
can
tend
cite
to base my opinions on what I've read in the broad, relevant clinical literature. I'm not making this stuff up. I studied antisocial behavior for like 15 years. I'm actually quite an expert on it. And so we know that men are more likely to...
Damn.
Look at it this way. All right. Women are much more likely to try to commit suicide. And men are much more likely to kill themselves. And the reason for that is that men use lethal force.
Yeah, aggression.
Now that's a big difference. Okay, so then you say, well, women manifest aggression towards themselves and to others, but they don't use lethal force. They don't use physical force the same way men do. So they have to do it some other way.
Why do
what
they
are the
have
other
to do
ways?
something some other way? That, you
Because
can take
people
your
are
Hobbesian
aggressive.
war against, so you're basically a Hobbesian. Life is
No,
war
I'm
of
half
all
and
against
half.
all.
Half and half. Half Hobbes, half Rousseau. That's why I'm not an ideologue. Because I don't think that people are good or evil. I think they're both. I don't think that culture is security or tyranny. I think it's both. And I don't think that nature is benevolence or catastrophe. I think it's both. And that's why I'm not an ideologue. And I mean...
And where do you stand on the Me Too campaign? Good thing?
I think that it risks damaging the presumption of innocence. I mean, there's plenty
Is there more to it than that?
Oh, sure. Women face the arbitrary admixture of...
Man, this is like a second wave feminism kind of thing. Damn, it's hard. It's hard to argue when you are very logical in your view of life, and you try to argue against a very emotional person. It's hard to have a middle ground. The emotional person is going to always move the pole is always going to move it, right? Pole, whatever. They're always going to move it. The goal pole, right? They're going to always move it. And then because you're logical, you're always looking at that argument because you want to kill it. That's a trap. Hopefully, let's see. I hope that Jordan Peterson don't get caught up in that trap.
Sexual advance and workplace performance all the time. It's a very complicated thing to sort out. We don't know how to sort it out exactly because, I mean, NBC, for example, the American TV station, has made it policy that you're not to hug your coworkers, which, may be true. Although I don't think it's the sort of thing that a corporation might be deciding for people. But we don't know exactly what the rules are for governing male and female behavior in the workplace because we've only been working together for about 35 years.
The square.
We don't know. After 35 years, wouldn't it be possible to figure something out?
Not when you're talking about a transformation in behavior that's that profound. I mean, we don't know how men and women can work properly together in the workforce. It's very complicated.
But
men don't know how to compete
millions
with
of men and women across the world go to work together day in, day out.
But you were the one who asked about Me Too.
You're the one who. Don't start with you're the one who.
Me Too is an expression of the fact that men and women are having a hard time regulating their behavior in the workplace. That's the only reason I responded to that, because the question was...
I think it's more broadly suggesting that some men are having a grave problem with it. What is the lesson of the Harvey Weinstein story for you?
Someone should have said something about Harvey Weinstein much sooner.
But we could start somewhere else. We could start with Harvey Weinstein was wrong to do what he did before we get round to other people should have spoken out. That's the secondary order issue.
Fair enough. I thought that went without saying. There are going to be psychopathic predators. They're going to exist. And what has to happen is that people have to stop them because they won't stop themselves. And so I thought that.
So what about, personal accountability? I mean, if Harvey Weinstein... I mean, don't wear the wig. You cannot be a judge. You see what I'm saying? You're entering this realm of weirdos and stuff like that. Don't complain about the fact that you might be a victim of it. You know, if you go to an ocean, it's a clear ocean. It looks beautiful, but you know there's sharks down there. Don't jump to the water. I'm not saying what the guy did is okay, but it's not okay. It's bad. It's very bad. But don't complain. That's the environment. That's the environment that they are. So Jordan Peterson presenting the fact that you should have seen do something sooner. She goes like, no. What about him? But we understand what he did was wrong. That's why he's in jail. But let's just tackle now the other side, which is why they didn't say anything sooner. There's a demand there. You don't want to admit it.
Was sort of implicit in the statement. Obviously, he shouldn't have done what he did.
But you don't think that the culture in which he was operating, that there was particularly in his world,
Hollywood?
in his world and in many other worlds, that there was a culture of, this guy's a powerful guy, he's the great silverback gorilla here, let him get on with it.
Oh, I think that culture was everywhere in Hollywood, which is why I think
Not
it's
just in
actually
Hollywood?
Hollywood particularly. I mean, the casting couch idea has been around for a very long period of time. And I think that
Everywhere.
the Hollywood types who are all upset about this should look to their own devices with regards to the role they played in fostering the culture that managed that. So
it sounds like you're...
Well,
Hollywood itself, or
you've
the
gotta
women,
think-
or who?
no,
Who's
no,
supposed
the
to
entire
sort of
culture.
set-
We were talking about culture.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's certainly that the Hollywood...
What's the sensible thing for
Okay,
women to do
moving-
about Me Too, to your mind? And what's
moving
the
the
less
topic.
sensible thing?
That's a hard question. It isn't obvious to me exactly what men and women have to do in the workplace to make that kind of sexual predation.
My experience in the past working with females is always drama. Always drama. You cannot have a clean workforce. You bring that femininity, that feminine energy. It can be useful for a lot of things, don't get me wrong. When it comes to the workforce, you have to be ready for that. There's females and guys, you're going to have, relationships, right? And you're going to have one feminine energy trying to be masculine and one masculine energy already established, right? Because it's in the workforce. So you will be, if you're this one, the feminine, this is the environment, these things are being handled. You want to come in, you want to get what you get, right? I'm not saying it's okay, right? But it is what it is. I mean, I think there was a data that 80% of female bosses and CEOs don't hire women for any reason. And I don't know a lot of these reasons. I just know from my personal experience, which is not something used for data. But I can tell why, right? It's just the dynamics is very different. You're going to get a lot of drama, a lot of gossipy and stuff like that. That's very dangerous. That's very negative. With a lot of gossip, all your energy gets drained. You're not productive, and then you want to pull people down in a different way, which is not good. It's just my opinion.
Much less likely with also subjecting themselves to restrictions on the sexual aspect of their existence that would be unbearable. It's very difficult.
What would be unbearable about that?
How about everybody wears the same uniform to work? That's what the Maoists... Well, look, if you want to eliminate the differences between men and women sexually at the workplace, you have to constrain the sexual differences. I mean, men
It's
wear
hard.
suits to work.
Well,
That's
we don't have
hard.
to eliminate the sexual differences for people to work together with respect.
Yeah.
You have to eliminate them to some degree.
Why? I'm genuinely...
There we go. Because she knows there's some power on that. You know what I'm saying? She knows there's some power on that. Sexuality, a female just, wear her dress, shorts, show her legs, walking, between her legs, red lipstick, nice hair. It's attraction. It's a powerful thing. If you're real to, the females do better because, there's some other things that guys don't have. Make it better for the deal. But you don't want to admit it. There's nothing wrong with that. Just admit it. It's okay to admit it. To be, you know what? You're right. There's certain things that, we can meet you in the middle. Oh, if this causing the problem, let's just meet you in the middle. But she don't want to do that. And Jordan Peterson's trying to get there.
The question here is, to what degree should sexually related behavior be impermissible at the workplace? Well, it depends on how you define it. Should you be able to dress attractively? And if you can dress attractively, what do you mean by attractively exactly? Precisely. I got into trouble.
I mean, I dressed nicely today. You look very well dressed to me, right? You're a man, I'm a woman. We're both nicely dressed. Now we're getting on with the interview. What's the problem?
Well, the problem is the boundaries of what constitutes nicely dressed. Because because part of what constitutes attractiveness, part of what constitutes nicely dressed, is sexual attractiveness. Because you can't separate out human attractiveness, sexual attractiveness, from human attractiveness. And so then the question is exactly where are the boundaries? And that's what the discussion is about. Where are the boundaries?
The dinner parties, which are described in a forward...
Brush her off. Not even listen to us. She just brushed her off.
Do you think in the broader conversation we've lost that spirit, or in danger of losing that spirit?
Still in the crowd.
Oh, I think we're always in danger of losing that spirit, right? Because lack of freedom is much more probable than freedom. We have to be very careful to maintain that because it's always under threat. And I do feel that it's under threat now. I think that people are very careful about what they say in ways that aren't good. I think the fact that many comedians won't perform on university campuses now is a very...
I remember when I was in New York before moving out of the state, a lot of comedians couldn't do a lot of jokes because the mob would just get them. They were very afraid to just say things because they might be waiting for them outside. It was crazy.
Good indication of that. That's a canary in the coal mine scenario of that.
Shout out to Liberty Hound. Good stuff. What do you guys think? I mean, just gave a couple of my opinions. Let me know in a comment below if I'm missing something, or do you agree or disagree with me?